Story 1, Once Upon a Time. CGI aside, the show was actually good, at least for the first few seasons. But the main antagonist, Rumpelstiltskin, makes it very clear that there is at least one limit to magic. Dead is dead. You can't bring anyone back. Guess what they did in Season 4? Story 2. Umbrella Academy. I already knew they were going to drop the ball on the third season. 13 Reasons Why. It wanted to have good intentions, but after a while, they just tried to add more unnecessary shock factors to it. Story 3. So many people have said it already, but let's say it again, The Walking Dead. I was so disappointed to see it go downhill the way it did. I think that's the most disappointed I've ever been in a show. In fact, I think that was the first time I ever stopped a show that I was heavily invested in simply because it got that bad. I love the undead and the whole idea behind it. I mean, who doesn't imagine themselves being in an apocalyptic world every so often? And so many movies and shows get it wrong, so The Walking Dead was a treasure because they were getting it so right. First, such a shame that it fell off in Fast 2. Story 4. Arrested Development. The first 3 seasons are among the best in sitcom history. I started 4 multiple times in the original version and the recut version. I couldn't get through it and totally lost interest. It's a shame. Story 5. Designated Survivor. Almost immediately. That show had such potential if they went for an Aaron Sorkin style. Man tries to rebuild United States government instead of Jack Bauer with bureaucracy. Story 6. The Simpsons. I'm surprised how long I had to scroll before I saw it. Some of the main writers left. Poor Phil Hartman was murdered by his wife. It went through a weird phase. Basically, it started to lose its shine from seasons 9 to 11. Seasons 1 to 8 were gold. Story 7. The Boys. Season 3 just did me in. I've tried to pick it back up in Season 4, but I've just lost interest. I was all in for Seasons 1 and 2, but in Season 3 it just became too little of The Boys and too much of the Homelander. I know people adore Anthony Starr's performance, but he is just not interesting enough to carry the whole show for me. I wanted to see more variety of superheroes, and The Boys having to do a lot more creative thinking to bypass powers and assassinate superpowered threats. Butcher and Homelander's personal conflict isn't nearly as interesting to me. Story 8. Cobra Kai. Hey, it's the season finale. I wonder which characters will randomly decide, for seemingly no particular reason, that they don't want to be friends with everyone they know anymore. They switch sides and join the people who were trying to harm them and everyone they know for the last year and a half, so they can help their ex-mortal enemies and new best friends fight their ex-best friends and new mortal enemies because... Wait, why were they fighting again? Story 9. Sexual Education on Netflix. The first season felt realistic for its setting. The second season turned into a fever dream based on the ravings of a Fox News contributor's biggest fears. Story 10. Shameless should have ended on a high note at Season 4. Without Frank as the antagonist, the show just became the characters making the same terrible choices over and over again, and not even wildly different ones, which could have been interesting. Most of Fiona's storylines had to do with starting a business, then failing. The bar, laundromat, the apartment building, each one she just dove in headfirst, and somehow she was still able to keep getting loans. I would have loved to see a return to an earlier storyline of her continuing her education as a mature student. That might have been interesting considering her background. Story 11. I didn't stop because I was too invested and too far in, but when I realized that Supernatural used the same formula for every single season. New villain is more cosmically huge than last season. 2. Dean is overprotective of Sam. 3. Sam tells Dean he's not a little kid anymore. 4. Dean and Sam finally make up. They go through that same arc every single season. Story 12. Sadly, The X-Files. It was starting to get a bit silly, but then Mulder disappeared. Robert Patrick did fine as the replacement, but the episode plots were just mediocre. I couldn't muster the energy to keep going. Story 13. I'm gonna go a little off the subject, but the Jurassic Park movies became ridiculous and insulting. They were just about a Tyrannosaurus-looking dinosaur chasing people around in every movie. The Fast and Furious movies became dumb as well. I stopped watching after the second one. I don't even know what part they're on, to be honest, but I bet they have green aliens chasing them around in space at this point. Story 14. I don't even have cable television anymore because I cannot stand the amount of commercials. I am a child of the 90s. I even have a few fond memories of commercials. From Milk, It's a Kitchen Moo, or the absolute insanity that was Quiznos and the point in time when we had green and purple ketchup for fries. Stick Man from Nickelodeon. Face. But most programs, if not all, are dumb. Reality TV is disgusting, and half the programming is commercials. I want laws, international laws that state I, as a human, shouldn't be exposed to more than 10 minutes of commercials a day. Story 15. From Season 2 dragged a lot. Very little time was given to the actual plot. Most of the time, it was about someone stuck under rubble or something. I am not sure if I will watch onward. Story 16. I have not been able to finish the final season of The Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead. There are other shows that became bad as well, but these two were the first to pop into my head. Story 17. Castle started off really fun and different from other cop shows. Then Beckett became this perfect character, and they were stopping terrorist attacks and amnesia. It just became an awful show. Story 18. Definitely The Walking Dead. Started off so strong, but after a few seasons, the storylines got way too repetitive and drawn out. The characters kept making dumb decisions for the sake of drama, and it just felt like they were dragging it on without any real direction. I lost interest around Season 8 and haven't looked back since. Story 19. Hate to say it, but after their reboot and move to Netflix, it fell off hard. Seasons 1 to 6 are great. After that, not so much. I really miss Corey and Trevor. Story 20. Lincoln Lawyer Season 2 and Dark. The fan base for Dark is intense, but the show is excessively pretentious with a storyline that often feels like it has no payoff. Story 21. Orange is the New Black. The first season was actually pretty good, but after that, the characters became annoying, and prison wasn't bad. It was just a clubhouse where wacky stuff happened. Story 22. Sex Education. Season 3 took a nosedive toward the end, and Season 4 just replaced all the funny and interesting characters with a bunch of one-dimensional freaks. Story 23. Carnival Row had this beautifully complicated political hierarchy all sketched out, then got completely derailed by the main character's romantic involvement. That made me so mad. I wouldn't have minded if it was a side thing going on, but they completely shifted focus into being a romance, and it ruined the entire premise. Story 24. Heroes. I know there's a writer's strike and all, but it got really stupid. Weirdly, the final straw for me was when they started giving powers to characters who never had them. Ando had no powers but managed to be my favorite character. Once they gave him powers, I finally said, forget this. Story 25. Mayor of Kingstown. It was never good, but it was a fun enough watch. Jeremy Renner's almost comedic exasperation, as people call him, about every little thing. But by Season 3, they are clearly just keeping it going for the paycheck. They have no material left. They caught a serious case of entourage disease. They have only one type of problem over and over, which is mostly solved by yelling into a cell phone or driving around town talking to people. Also, they say each other's names in every single line of dialogue, and it drives me insane. This oddly also happened in Entourage. Story 26. Sons of Anarchy just got ridiculous with the number of people they killed and buried in the hills. They must have eventually killed half the population of the town.